Throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even the 1980s, white American players dominated rosters throughout the league. In fact, during the 1950s and for the better part of the 1960s, there was an unspoken rule that limited the number of blacks to a team. Even in the college game, the number of white players has dropped considerably. From the 1920s until 1947, few black players were allowed in major college programs. One notable exception was, of course, Jackie Robinson, the multi-sport star from UCLA, 1939 to 1941. My question is, where did all the white players go?
First time that I really, watched the game of the NBA was, our Supersonics when they were, what was it, 78, 77, 78, 79, and
Songs went back to back, 78 and 79 against the Bullets, and actually winning in 79, coming up short in 78.
Yeah, so that's when, in looking at that time, I just remember my favorite players on the Sonic team. Fred Brown, Johnny Johnson, Lonnie Shelton, Marvin Webster, Gus Williams, DJ, Dennis Johnson, and then the other guys that were on that team were Wally Walker, Jack Sikma.
Yeah, squad.
Well, you know what they did, but it's so funny because in 78, he mentioned he fused the two teams together. In 78, that was the Marvin Webster-led team. John Johnson, who I think was the most cerebral of all the Sonics. He was the point forward. In 79, it was Jack Sikma led. Jack
Sikma led, yes.
And you had Gus Williams and DJ. They were the babies then. I wanted to say something about what you said about when athleticism started to impact the game. Do you realize that, in the 40s and then the 30s, the 40s, and those times before, it was the National Basketball League and the Basketball Association of America, the BAA and the NBL, actually merged together in 1949 to create the NBA. In 1950, the BAA and the NBL formed like I said, in 1949. So their first draft was 1950. And in 1950, they integrated basketball with the newly formed NBA. They, Chuck Cooper from Duquesne was the first black player drafted, and that was by rookie coach Red Auerbach, and he also drafted a kid we might have heard of named Bob Cousy in 1950. But that very same year, though, Nat Sweetwater Clifton, who was a Harlem Globetrotter,
right?
And there's a movie that's coming out now about his story. But Nat was the first. Nat was also drafted in that season, and Earl Lloyd was the actual first black player to play in the game in October of 1950. He played with the Washington Capitals. Real quick, I'm going to go back to the Globetrotters. In 1948 and 49, the Globetrotters, which was, the Michael Jordans, the Bryants of the day, because there was no black players in the quote top league. They played the world champion Lakers in 48 and 49 and beat them. They said that the Globetrotters had a monopoly of all the best players. That's what they came up with.
Oh, is that what they came up with?
Can you imagine that? But that's what was said. The very first episode, after the Globetrotters beat the world champion Lakers 2 years in a row, they formed the NBA, and rookie Red Auerbach was the first coach to draft a black player. Anyway, so we were talking about the when the game changed. I mean, you think about Naismith. He couldn't even imagine the acrobatics and the physicality of the players. The physical game has morphed beyond recognition, and I think that part of that whole change of demographic, because look, we were watching teams in the 70s and 80s. There was still a lot of white players in the league,
Right.
and I think with the reason why the white numbers changed is because the goalposts changed. When the game changed from know-how to do-how, and I think that do-how was based on the dream team illustrating to the world how to play the game from not only a fundamental standpoint, but also a theatric standpoint. And the fledgling ESPN at the time, they had to drive narrative. They had to push product. They had to show all the super fantastic plays. And that gave rise to the N1 players. And when the N1 players hit the scene, now the game changed from being good to looking good. It went from technique to creativity. And if you're competing on the creative and physical plane, then naturally the league's gonna get caught.
We talking about the American white player, right?
Yes.
Because I think the American white players suffer from the same thing some of the black players suffer from. The Europeans coming in, right? You got the white. There's a lot of white guys in the league. There's just a lot of
every weekend
European guys. See,
yeah,
that's how I see it. When we start discussing this, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, actually, there are a lot of white guys in the league, and deservingly so. They deserve to be in the league.
Yeah,
big, talented, well-rounded. You know, we talked about before. Those guys will come over here and they're prepared.
that's right.
So I don't think there may be a decline in the American white player, but as far as white players being in the league, I don't think so. I don't think there's a decline.
There's only 17% white, and that includes European players. So there's definitely been a decline. I mean, and that's not even mentioning in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see what it says here. Yeah, in 2022, there were 43 white American players in the league.
Well, in the NBA, you don't get the DEI in the NBA. You're there because you belong there. The best players should be there, and for the most part, I think that's the case.
Well, mostly
the best players in the league. It's hard, huh? What's that?
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly.
I think this year's draft ushered back in the American player being more of the top elite level player. I think
agree.
this is the first year in a long time, and not just white or black, because I think it's the European or the foreign player that's really dominated, and we can look at that, and we talked about this the other day.
Right.
Canada has ushered in a lot of the top elite players that were elite as of draftable status. We've had that eliteness there. And then obviously with Shea Alexander being the MVP this year, you know, that gave them credence as to so and so being, you know, maybe on the top of the NBA scale.
The Canadian players are like they're like European players, but they're more athletic than the average European player.
Yes,
the American basketball, I'd say the ABM or the American basketball model has been suffering for years because the kids, the world learned the game from the dream teamers. So they learned the world learned to be fundamentally sound.
There we go.
While we were still smashing the teams on the world stage, they were steadily closing the gap from a fundamental standpoint.
Yes.
And so even though, like, I remember, was a couple Olympics ago when we played Spain, and we won because of two Herculean efforts, one from Kobe and one from Dwayne Wade. That's why we won. But
Well,
had it not been for those plays, we would have lost to a team that I think Spain had like 50 layups. They were running a clinic on
They
us.
were. They were. Yeah.
well,
I was like, man, this
They were.
is crazy.
but yep. It's the same thing that just happened this last past Olympics. We had to have a heroic effort by Steph Curry to
Curry.
to
True.
to, to and that's why I say we're in trouble come this next Olympics, because now you're going to have an experienced player in France, along with those other players who feel like they're just as good as some of the American players. So now now they have something that once he gets another year or two under his belt at the NBA level, he's totally unguardable on both ends of the floor, on the offense and the defensive side, and fundamentally going to be unguardable. So now it's going to be, how do we take over that supremacy ship with who we have now coming up? Are your Cooper Flags, are your Anthony Edwards, are your who is fundamentally, when those games have to be played in that manner, who are we going to have that can step up and do what LeBron has done, what Steph has done, what KD has
True.
done, because they're no longer going to be able to compete at that level in the next Olympics.
And we just talked about the, superior technique transcends physicality.
Yes.
So that's why when we talked about a few episodes ago, how effective even players were from times long ago, where someone would hear about a person playing in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, 80s. They think that person can't play. And I'll even have commentary on Seattle basketball with guys, and they'll be making the assumption that even the 60s guys couldn't play. Like, they'll be like, get out of here, man. They couldn't. Well, what do you mean? That Luka Doncic is basically Fred Flintstone killing you MFs right now.
Yeah.
They say he's getting in shape, but you understand the point.
Yeah.
It's not even about how physical you are. As long as you're technically sound and your application model is right, then you can have consistent success, because we've seen plenty of do-how artists who are very skilled and very talented, but the way they process the game intellectually preempts them from having consistent success.
That might be the truest statement I've ever heard that you said in total to how this looks. The know-how will always beat the do-how.
Correct.
I mean,
know-how. Listen, know-how will win most of the time now.
Yeah.
And these betting sites will prove the point. But most of the time, know-how will win this series against new do-how almost always.
Do you guys believe the American player is getting better? Like when you go to college, are they developing these kids?
No, they don't have an opportunity to. You're not going to college to develop anymore. You're going to college to just put your year in so that you can get as much money as you can and get to the next level.
Well, that's the problem then.
But now that the money's moved down to that level, you have to be already at that professional level for them, because now it's about how you can impact the program. Player development is something that should have happened already before we start paying you, because now they're officially paying people. And I want to ask you this, speaking of that, I think this is the first time this is even that relevant. Because if you took now, if you look at the NBA as it is, and on paper, the world team is probably better than the USA team. What do you think?
Yeah, as a whole, man to man, yes, I would believe
As
so.
a group, man to man, look, Anthony Edwards is the reason why I love Anthony Edwards so much, because he's a super freak athlete and he's fundamentally sound. That kid is clean in this technique. Okay. But you throw out the Joker, Shea, even Wagner. you take those kind of players and put them in a group setting, the way they think and process. Man, I don't know if the U.S. is ready anymore.
They can't. Well, we're going to see in this next All
I
Star
don't.
game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Did you see Ace Bailey highlights? You see Ace Bailey the other night?
Yeah, but he's 4 years away.
He's 4.
I saw.
Well, the Olympics is
He
4 years away. Like I said, if he develops right, if he
in
develops,
that.
go ahead.
No, he in that. What I look. It was the Clayton.
Yeah. Yes.
I watched that. I watched that
Who,
game, and they had like 50.
Yeah.
who was?
Well,
I didn't see.
I just saw
Oh,
Clayton last night.
yeah, but see, we've always seen the kids. Look, the trend is trending towards know-how because
Yeah,
of the European influence. So I think our kids are finally getting better, but we've given up so much market share.
Right.
Because I said this, and we've talked about this. Remember, we said this
yes,
a few years ago, and we don't mean this uh, uh, in the negative way. But we used to say, man, it seemed like every weekend there's a new white guy in the league. He's not American, but he's a white guy, and so we know that it has to do with technique and application, because the European white guys have always been able to be a part of the mix with the super freak athletes. The white American player lost share trying to compete just off those tenets. Because if let's just be honest, if there's 6 kids, 2 sets of 6 kids in the room, and you have to bet your last $100 which team or which group is the best dancers, and you don't know either one of them, you're probably going to go with the black kids because you're probably thinking they probably have a little bit more.
yeah,
Uh, so if the game is based on athleticism and creativity, of course we expect the league to become predominantly black. Let's just be honest. Could Dr. Naismith fathom the above the rim acrobatics or the street ball creativity of the modern player? The era of the physical freak has morphed the game of basketball beyond physical recognition. It's becoming more and more difficult to compete on today's athletic plane. Culturally, blacks as a whole have an advantage over whites athletically, strictly based on our embouchure, or how we attach to the earth. So in addition to our athletic prowess, our cultural sense of rhythm or soul seems to give us an advantage in dancing and other types of physical creativity. It's not surprising that blacks fill the majority of the roster spots in the NBA. The American basketball model caters to our subcultural advantages. However, the NBA is not all black. And so it says here the European players, as we mentioned, seem to fare better relative to the super freak model of play. And the remedy is what's the remedy?
fundamentals, fundamentals and skill. Right, like we always say, skills pay the bills. Those players are ready when they get here. They can play in any environment. Most of the European players that come over here, they've played in the pros for 3 or 4 years. They start playing in the pros at 16. So they're NBA ready when they get over here. The majority of them are. Right? Wouldn't you say?
I, I would say this is maybe this is way out there, but when you look at most of the European players, they come from this. I'm trying. I don't know how to put this, but I'm going to put it out there.
Talking about war torn
Yeah,
country. I
there we
guess
go. So they come
the
from
hood.
the hardened. They come
The
from the
hood.
hardened.
Oh
That's
yeah.
really what I'm trying to say.
I,
They come from the same. It's just it doesn't seem the same because you look at the skin tone and you
yeah.
go, well, they have the suburban life. Well, no, if you go where they come from, it might be more difficult than where we've
They
come from.
don't like Vladi took exception when one of the reporters was talking to him about how well he had played and about the pressure. He goes,
Yeah.
"Don't insult me. This is basketball. This is
Yeah.
no pressure.
Yeah, it's no pressure.
After I finish talking to you, I'm going to call home and see if my mom and my sister are okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
When the war in Kosovo was going on, he's like, man,
Yeah.
this is basketball. This ain't pressure. This ain't compared to my life. They just are. They have the ig gaff. They don't give a f
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
They seem to have a certain way that they process pressure. And one of the things to be an effective performer, I don't care what field you're in, you have to be able to conquer your environment.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't matter what kind of skill set you have. If you can't summon it, if you can't get inside your toolbox because of your nerves, or some people, like, even in some people are just practice players. They do a lot of practice, but when it comes game time, they're not able to access their skill set. And emotional development or intelligence is one of the key elements to being a consistent performer in any.
Well, we will. I always remember this, talking to somebody and say, you know what, it's 90% confidence, 10% skill. So if you look at it in that way right there, we always say this: hey, mental talent is just as effective as physical talent, if not more, because
Absolutely. You got
being
to have it.
able to, like you just said, being able to be in that type of environment and be able to succeed when the pressure for you to perform at your highest level, and you're a 8 out of a 10, then that's the players that you're looking at,
I agree.
and you might take that player and they go play down on the street somewhere, and the other player might be just as good. But once you put all those fans, all those lights and cameras and all that, it's the ones that can then perform mentally as well as what their physical gifts are. And that's, to me, why nobody can ever tell me this, that Michael Jordan wasn't the top player. And LeBron, you can tell me all those different things, but we've seen when the game has got to its highest level and with its most stress, Michael, and don't say Michael didn't have his moments where he missed shots and things like that, but the mentality he had to perform at the highest level when it was at his highest, he was 10 out of 10 when it came to that right there.
Oh, hey man, hey, don't get me
A lot of
started.
times, that's why what you just said, Craig.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard for me to say he's not the GOAT.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard. And
Fellas,
plus, when he walked in at the top 75 All-Star, when he walked in, it just something just felt different. Like, okay, he the man. He's the man.
Yeah.
I'll say this though. I mean, I think, like, we talk about focus, or we talk about grit, like, your physical, your technical, your application model, and your grit factor. You just said that, Craig. Now, and that's being able to focus in the moment at hand. Man, look, I think that when we mention Michael Jordan, and we bring up here we are on the Jordan LBJ debate, but when it comes to Michael, yes, he brought a certain level of concentration and execution to the fray, for sure. But in terms of focus, I think, in LeBron's defense, that guy is able to focus on what's necessary in the moment, which may or may not include him taking the last shot. So I think that's the reason. Like, we think how incredible it is to have been in 9 out of 10 championships, and so that means that you're making a lot of quality decisions in crunch time, let alone the most game winners of all time. I just think they have two different roles, because Kobe and Michael Jordan, rather, those are just straight up killers.
Kill
If
it.
you got
Kill it.
caught in the alleyway and you were on their list, you can forget it. But see, with LeBron, you're still not going to get out the alley, because if he can't run up on you and stab you like Kobe and Mike are gonna stab you and look at you like Bruce Lee would. Nonetheless, LeBron didn't stab you, but he had the person at the end of the block look out the window from the second floor and make sure that they got you. He's more like that. He's more like, because Magic would be running through on his cell phone telling people, hey, Ed, he's coming your way. I need you to do this. Whereas Michael Jordan and Kobe, they're going to kill you themselves.
You're talking about the alley. I
Yeah.
don't think Michael and Kobe going to let you get in the alley. See, LeBron will let you get, beat you up in the alley, but Mike and Kobe not going to let you get in the alley at all. You're not getting to the alley.
You couldn't even get out the car. Hey, you couldn't even get out the car.
But then I get where you say that about LeBron is going to make that. But if we remember it, and this is where I go back to it, is two of the biggest shots in the finals games, a couple of them made by John Paxson and the other one by Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
So I can't go with Mike is just going to take the shot. He's going to put the pressure on himself to make you react to that. So then you have to make a decision. Am I going to try to take you away? So,
yep.
So I get that. That's where I say his level. Now it took him time to really figure that out. You know,
took him Scottie Pippen. You mean he took him Scottie Pippen?
Okay,
right.
So with that being said, though, LeBron came in the league, and it was there already.
Right.
You know what? Oh no, let me take that back. It wasn't there. He was more on an attack mode when he first got in the league.
Right.
He was attacking a lot, and then I think he kind of settled down and to me turned into Magic Johnson 2.0.
But LeBron was carrying teams, man. LeBron was carrying teams.
Yes, as a baby, you know. Yeah. And then I thought the other day, think about this. How good does he have to be for people to keep mentioning him in the same breath with Michael Jordan? How good does this dude have to be? And people talk bad about him, LeBron and all that. This dude has to be special to keep talking about, is he better than Jordan, Michael, or is he not?
Because I'm still salty they ain't talking about me.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Why y'all laughing?
I knew that was coming.
What y'all laughing about? That's funny.
Getting back to like, I think it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch our players now because the reason that we always look, and you'll hear the NBA guys talking about, especially Kenny Smith, when more people gravitated towards the game because Michael was such this phenomenon aura to people. The thing that Kenny Smith always says is not only was he one of the best athletes, but fundamentally he was the best player. And that's where I think it's hard to watch all these guys who have gotten, obviously the game moved on past Michael, and what he brought to the visibility was the reason why it grew so well. But I think the hardest thing to watch now is to not see a lot of these guys who are uberly just as physically gifted as Michael is, if not more physically, as far as physical, that they don't then put the other part into it anymore. And now the fundamental part of it doesn't then fit along with their games. You know, because think about how many guys that we're watching now. And part of it is because the money's so good that people don't put that type of time into it anymore. You know, it's like I'm getting paid.
Required. It's not required. They're already paid. Yeah, and I wanted to say this real quick because we talked about this the other day, and we're getting short on time here. And you and I were talking about, yes, there's 17% of the players in the NBA are white, and that includes the European players, and that means that there's less white American players. But you spoke to the caliber and types of white American players that are currently in the league, and I thought that was on point, what you were saying. Go get back into that.
Oh, well, I would just mention that the white American players that are in the league are in the league for a reason, because they got grit. They're rough, tough, rugged. And when I mentioned T.J. McConnell. I would ask my son, why do you think T.J. McConnell's been in the league so long? I know he's about 13 years in, right? At least 10 or 13.
Yes. Yes.
If you just look at T.J. McConnell, you probably would say, okay, why is he in the league? No, solid. He'll pick you up 94 feet. He rough, tough. He don't back down. He gonna attack you. He gonna hit open shots. He plays the game the way it's supposed to be played. He's rough and tough.
Tough-minded.
Tough. He just grit. Peyton Pritchard the same way.
Correct.
Who else?
Well, I think your new one's going to be Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
It's going to be
We're
Cooper
gonna
Flagg.
see. We're gonna have to see because
They're gonna come at
Cooper. Exactly, and these are
coming.
Cooper Flagg's a big guy, and like I said, the hardest transition is for the guys who come in as a physical type of player. He's gonna be playing against grown, double-grown men. We're gonna have to wait. I mean, I'm not saying
he's going to take. He's going to be like
skilled.
3 or 4 years. It's going to be 3 or 4 years before he really, really settles in and matures. Because remember, he leveled up a year. He leveled up a year, so he's really young. I mean,
what I was thinking though. I was thinking it may be a little quicker because of the personnel you have around it.
There we go. They're not going to. He's not going to. Yeah. Yes.
No.
He's gonna get a chance to grow psychologically.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He's gonna get a lot of wide open shots. He's gonna just be able to play instead of going to a team like the Wizards or somewhere. You got people jumping on him and attacking him. The floor is gonna be wide open for him. Because I said, Anthony Davis, I'm over a bad boy, man. Anthony Davis can play.
Well,
yeah,
I think the thing about Cooper that I love is what's gonna make what's not going to look like he's as good as he's going to be is because offensively, I think he's going to have his struggling nights. But where he is above and beyond all the other guys is on the defensive side of the ball. And that dude plays serious D. Whether he's attacking block shots, whether he's in position.
Off ball. You mean, I think he's better off ball D.
That's what I mean.
You mean on ball. Man, that's gonna be an awakening for him on ball. Off ball, he's a terrific off ball defender. I give you that.
Yeah.
But on ball defense in the NBA is an awakening. I mean, I told you who I enjoyed watching the other day. Etchcombe, he reminds me of a brand new Jimmy Butler, athletic Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
It's some
kid from Baylor.
I'm sorry.
The kid from
Baylor. Yeah.
BJ, this is some
I didn't get a chance to see him.
players. Yeah, well, I'm excited to watch the game tomorrow. Bronny and the Lakers versus Cooper and the Mavs.
Yeah.
That's a must see TV tomorrow.
Yeah.
I actually talked about it today about Bronny being the perfect apprentice. When you look at him, and when I realized he was going to get the opportunity to play in the league, it was easy for me to evaluate him just based on, I talked about today, face value. He has all the amenities. He has the right mindset. He has the right mentors. So now, a year later, even though he's the 55th pick, he's mobilizing. This is a legitimate comparison between Bronny and Cooper Flagg. It's intriguing enough for it to have all the hoopla because of his unique situation. And that's one of the same things that happened for Kobe, and one of the same things that is going to happen for Cooper. They're in an environment where the pressure's not on them to carry anything. They're learning from legitimate stars.
So then that's when I say, okay, what are those other guys watching that they don't see when they see him play?
A lot of GMs they don't know talent. We talked about it before. I just believe that they don't know talent. That's and don't know how to put it together. Team chemistry, things of that nature. They don't know. So
who's the top American white ball player.
Top American?
White ball
White ball.
player? Oh, it's Cooper Flagg. Are you talking about?
He hasn't been on the
Total?
floor yet.
Remains to be seen. Remains to be seen with Cooper Flagg.
Who's the top? Who's the
Let me
top
think.
white American ball? You should be able to say. We should, but it should be somebody that jumps off the table.
I think it's Cooper Flagg. I know he's just coming in. I mean, I like Tyler Hero, but I don't. I mean, I think there's a ceiling in where his game goes. I like.
Austin
Man,
Reed.
yeah, but they're good players. But are they? Yeah, I think at the end of the day,
No
it's
question
Cooper Flagg.
about that. Man. I haven't thought
Who?
about that.
Who?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think it's Cooper Flagg.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wait,
that's
wait.
crazy because you should know. You should have
Cooper,
somebody who's in the league right now that is
Cooper
a
Flagg,
no-brainer.
Cooper Flagg is better than Von Wagner from Orlando.
Von
Right,
Wagner's German.
Oh, he is. Oh, he's not American. He's not American born. You're right. You're right.
German.
Yeah,
I mean,
both him and his brother.
I can think of Austin Reeves. I can think of Tyler Hero. I can think of Podzimski. I can think of
Yeah, but when you put them in your mind,
TJ McConnell.
Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, I mean, because when we think about that with the black-born American, we know for sure. We're looking at Steph, we're looking at KD, we're looking at Bron, we're looking at Anthony Edwards coming up. We're looking at. I mean, we know. That's a great question.
That's the point. That is the point of this. Our whole topic is that we've trying to get to the nuts and bolts because for so many years there was a white contingency, and at one point it was because my dad was playing in the early '60s. There was a unspoken rule that limited the number of black players to the team, but still, I'm talking about when I was growing up. I could have real quickly said Rick Barry and all kinds of guys that we could that could really play. So where has that guy gone? This has been another edition of the Point Walk the Walk Hoop Talk, where our goal is always, as always, fellas, is to help players, fans, and coaches become more intellectuals of the game. And even when we have these sideline topics, just to bring different perspectives and different way to see things, because we're all basketball enthusiasts and we all see things a certain way. There is a way and the way we see things. And so it's nice to have collaborative symposium and get to the point of things. What you got?